Almost everybody's nice, and then there's Blake, who's she's totally different than everyone else.
They say the camera doesn't lie, but the editing bay, that's where the real delusions get stitched together. Frame by frame, demand by demand, ego by ego. Because if you actually trace the events, not the fan fiction Blake Lively's lawyers submitted as a lawsuit, you'll find the story didn't implode on set. It unraveled when someone told Blake no. No, you can't re-edit the entire film with your hand-picked editor. No, you don't get 10 uninterrupted days in post. No, you're not the director. And most importantly, no, you're not always right. It wasn't fear that triggered the lawsuit, it was rejection. And if there's one thing Blake Lively has never tolerated well, it's being denied a spotlight she thinks she earned just by showing up. Because this wasn't a woman who got pushed out of the creative process. This was a woman who got everything she wanted, then filed a lawsuit when it still didn't make her feel important enough. She had the lead role, the executive producer credit, the press cycle, the product lines, the designer wardrobe rollout that somehow turned a domestic violence adaptation into a soft launch for hair dye. She was the face of the project, and that still wasn't enough. Because deep down, Blake wasn't trying to collaborate. She was trying to conquer. Let's talk timeline. Filming resumed in January. Wrapped in February, her own agent confirmed she reported no issues during Phase 2. The set was fine. The tone was friendly. The texts were breezy. The trauma? That showed up in March, right after she found out Justin Baldoni had returned to the editing bay without her. That's when the real problem set in. Blake Lively didn't want to be an actress anymore. She wanted to be a mogul. She wanted to do what Ryan does. Walk into a room, take over a brand, slap her name on it, and call it Vision. The only difference? Ryan usually pulls it off. Blake tried to hijack a finished movie with a stack of notebook paper and a Sephora discount code. And when she realized her notes weren't gospel and her version of the film might not be seen, she did what any good PR-trained narcissist does. She reframed rejection as abuse. She called discomfort unsafe. She turned not getting her way into a movement. Let's be clear. She had the power from day one. She skipped her nudity rider, and no one forced her to sign. She told Justin she didn't need the intimacy coordinator, and he let it go. She demanded a separate edit and got it. She flew in her own editor, screened her own cut for her friends and family, charged the studio for all of it, and then ghosted when it was time to collaborate. This wasn't a woman being silenced. This was a woman being told she's not the director and losing her mind over it. And then came the Ayub recording. 38 minutes Blake hoped would stay buried because it doesn't scream harassment. It doesn't even whisper it. It's just Claire Ayub, allegedly recording Steve Sarowitz without his knowledge, quietly capturing a conversation where he calmly unpacks how he, Justin Baldoni, and Jamie Heath were all stuck in a project that had morphed into a high-stakes standoff. No raised voices, no threats, just a man trying to make sense of how working with Blake had turned into a hostage situation. Creatively, emotionally, legally, it wasn't evidence of danger, it was evidence of exhaustion. And still, even after all that, the narrative she spun had one fatal flaw. The timeline never supported her. Because for someone who says she felt unsafe, Blake sure waited a long time to say so. There were no complaints filed during post-production. No claims when she was texting Justin jokes, giving notes, and offering compliments. Not even when she was demanding editing access or threatening to withhold promotion. The word unsafe only showed up after the public turned on her. After the film came out, after she had already edited, marketed, promoted, and launched her own products off the back of it. That's not fear, that's positioning. She wasn't trying to escape a hostile work environment. She was trying to rebrand a power struggle. Because if you frame a creative disagreement as harassment, suddenly it's not about ego anymore. It's about survival. And that's exactly what she needed it to be after the reception started slipping through her fingers. The internet wasn't buying what she was selling. The Blake Brown rollout fell flat. Her sudden transition from soft-lit goddess to anti-hero didn't land. Her version of the film flopped in screenings, and she was forced to insert scenes from Justin's cut just to salvage it. And like clockwork, that's when she hit the legal panic button. Her lawsuit read like an essay on how to make everyone else responsible for your bad ideas. She brought up crying on set. She said Justin brought up her father. She called a conversation about spiritual beliefs an unsafe dynamic. She framed standard production pressures as psychological warfare. She called being asked to finish scenes she had already agreed to, a violation. In other words, she retrofitted perfectly explainable moments into an emotional horror film where she's the only survivor. And the best part? She filed it after she got the credit, the control, and the creative space she fought for. If that doesn't scream calculated, nothing does. And it all goes back to one core issue. She never thought Justin deserved to be in charge. He's not the one with the Vogue cover. He's not the one with the curated Instagram aesthetic or the matching couple brand. To Blake, he was the guy who got lucky, the guy who should have deferred to her brilliance and handed her the keys. When he didn't, she did what narcissists do when charm stops working. She switched tactics and tried to become the victim. But here's the thing about that switch. It requires your story to hold, and Blake's didn't. She said she felt unsafe, but never told him, never told production, never even told her reps until the public narrative flipped on her. She said she was harassed, but she kept texting him like nothing happened. She said she was retaliated against, but she had already withdrawn from the process, taken control of the edit, and shut Justin out of the promotion. She said she was silenced, but she was the one filing subpoenas, controlling the press rollout, and allegedly DMing cast members behind the scenes to coordinate appearances without Wayfarer's knowledge. At some point, the act falls apart, and all you're left with is a powerful woman playing the victim after she already ran the show and still didn't get what she wanted. But Blake couldn't stop there, because when the victim card didn't hit the way she planned, she reached for the next one in the deck, the enforcer. She began issuing subpoenas to critics and content creators online. Because in Blake's mind, the problem wasn't her story falling apart. It was that too many people noticed. She accused Justin of running a smear campaign. Then, she ran a legal campaign to silence criticism. She called herself a whistleblower, then used her legal team to go after everyone who dared to ask what she was blowing the whistle on. And this is where her strategy truly starts eating itself, because no one believes the woman crying harassment while simultaneously abusing the legal system to shut down commentary. No one buys that the same person who went silent for months suddenly finds her voice only when the internet turns on her. Nothing signals panic like trying to scrub the record before the defense can speak. And that brings us to Ryan. The man who's always had a joke ready and a camera in his hand suddenly has nothing to say. He's not just adjacent to the drama anymore, he's embedded in it. He was on the group texts. He was in the loop. He was involved when Blake was demanding edits, reworking cuts, and threatening to withhold promotion. And while she was allegedly targeting creators with subpoenas, Ryan was co-signing the silence. Watching it happen, backing her up. Whether he helped draft the strategy or just approved it behind the scenes, the result is the same. This is no longer Blake's PR crisis alone. Ryan's name is stamped on it too. He can't wiggle out of this when he's in the passenger seat next to her funding the crazy train. Behind the scenes, the narrative is shifting. Studios are watching, brands are reevaluating. This isn't just messy, it's expensive. And Blake's not delivering the box office goodwill or public sympathy to justify the headache. In fact, she's reportedly losing the very support system she built her rise on. The small, elite circle that used to shield her from fallout, she's gone quiet on socials. Team members are allegedly ghosting reporters. Her own agent had no convincing defense. Even the fan accounts are starting to hedge. The problem with playing every role, lead actress, producer, director, victim, enforcer, is that eventually, people stop knowing which version of you is real. And worse, they stop caring. This was supposed to be her turning point, her transformation. Instead, she turned It Ends With Us into the working title of her career. Because she didn't just weaponize discomfort, she tried to trademark it. She wrapped ego in legal paper and called it empowerment. She tried to reshape a man's movie into her own, and when he didn't hand it over with a bow, she sued. And when people noticed, she didn't apologize. She tried to subpoena them. Now the evidence is out. The recording is public. The contradictions are stacking up. And for the first time in her career, Blake Lively is discovering what it feels like to be on the other side of the camera. Unfiltered, unedited, and completely exposed.